stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 7th meeting.
So tonight we're going to do, we have a lot of people here and we understand a lot of people would like to share public comments with us. We're going to do things a little differently tonight. We're going to have everyone who wants to have a comment sign in from the beginning, and you'll have an opportunity when we get to the public comment section to be called in sequence from the sign-in sheet. But in order to expedite public comments and make sure everyone has a chance to speak in the proper sequence, we're going to follow kind of a little more structure tonight. So if you do intend to speak for public comments tonight, we would ask that during the course of the meeting, we're going to have some reports, we're going to have some superintendent's report, etc. And if you can get your name on the sheet before we reach the public comment period, we'll collect the public comment sheet and we'll go down the list and you'll get a chance to speak in the sequence in which you signed up. So that's what we're going to do tonight, to try and keep things a little more orderly than maybe have happened in the past. So we appreciate your cooperation and your understanding.
Okay, we have a very full agenda this evening, so we are going to go right into our high school reports.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucy Mortensen, and I'm in 11th grade at Eastchester High School. Here are a few events happening at our school. Come and see Jazzco's 39th Weekend of Dance this week, Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m., and Sunday at 1 in the high school auditorium. Tickets are $10 and can be purchased at eastchesterBookTix.com. This is a show that you don't want to miss. The high school jazz band will be having a concert on February 16th. Please come to support these talented musicians in what is sure to be a great performance. We'd like to thank members of the band for playing during the middle school's production of Annie Jr., along with some members of the high school tech crew who worked behind the scenes. You helped the show come to life. Last night was the girls' basketball senior night. They won their game against Sleepy Hollow in double overtime. The final score was 65-62. Congrats, girls. Eastchester Eagles, please take a few minutes to vote for our own Kai Sheffield as this week's Low HUD Wrestler of the Week. Congratulations to the Eastchester Academic Challenge team for their stunning victory against the top Westchester Quiz Bowl teams. The Poetry Club is selling Valentine's Day grams for $1 during lunch periods. The grams will be handed out on Valentine's Day. We'd like to give a huge congratulations to varsity winter track athletes Natalia, Ava, Casey, and Victoria for breaking the 4x800 relay school record this past weekend. Last week, EGO hosted a blood drive, which was a huge success. 38 donors registered to donate 31 units. 93 lives were potentially impacted, and 10 of the donors did it for the first time. Thank you to all who planned the event and donated. Rock Against Cancer is back. On Friday, March 3rd at 7 p.m., you can watch students sing, dance, act, and more. There is a $5 admission fee, and all proceeds go to the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Anyone else have board committee reports this evening? Christine, Ann Hutch?
Just that Ann Hutch had their Sweetheart Dance this past weekend. I'd like to thank Marina Cartanos and Dina Dunn for their work and help organizing, as well as all the volunteers that went out and delivered all the cereal bowls, as well as everyone at the door. It was a great event. I think on Thursday and Friday are the family movie nights, and that I think there was just posted on the PTA site's upcoming dates with respect to 5th grade activities.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep.
Just wanted to remind the Greenvale community that the Greenvale Sweetheart Dance is this Sunday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Molino's. Should be a wonderful time as always for the families. So hope to see everybody there.
And I'm going to do the middle school one and just say that the middle school put on their play Annie, which was fantastic, and congratulations to the high school orchestra that participated, and Mark Dodge and Jeremy Mesmer, and special thanks to Miss Bonner and Miss Rendy for doing a fantastic job, and all the cast and crew. It was a really great show, and the kids loved it. So thank you to them. One more thing that I wanted to talk about is the board and Dr. Valenti have been working on a survey that's going to go out to the community, asking your feedback on several different initiatives. And these are things that parents have been asking for many years, such as learning foreign language in elementary school, accelerated learning for elementary school, a study skills class for middle school, and an SAT prep course for high school. Those are just some of the questions that we're going to be asking for your feedback on. So we're working on that, and that will be coming to you, I think, the end of this week. And we hope that we can bring you some of these initiatives because they're a long time coming. Parents have been asking for a long time. So we thank Dr. Valenti for exploring all of these initiatives for us. Thank you. And that is it for me.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's that for the superintendent's report? So let me go to battle station number 1. Show on the road. Okay. All right. Thank you, and welcome everybody. First of all, we have a new registrar, and Rose Schneider, unfortunately, decided to retire, and she's very happily retired, I'm told. But she has agreed to work with us on a consultant basis, on a per diem basis. But we were fortunate enough to interview several candidates for civil service position registrar, and we would like to make a recommendation tonight to the board. And I'd like to introduce to the board Faye Hillis, and she is the finalist. She will be part of our consent agenda. And Faye comes to us with an extraordinary background in areas of accounting, areas of administrative assistant to top officials in the corporate sector, and a good deal of work that is administrative in nature. And so Faye is not only able to encompass the scope and responsibilities of the registrar's position, but also will be able to add value in terms of the other business acumen she brings to the table. One other point before I introduce Faye, it is the practice of the district to begin in kindergarten and conduct registration in terms of residency in kindergarten. But it is not our practice to extend that to students leaving Waverly going into second grade, students leaving the middle level elementary going into sixth grade, nor leaving middle going into high school. I would like to establish that as a new practice, that we now electronically examine residency at each of those key points in the life of a student here in the Eastchester School District. The reason is twofold. Number one, it's good practice to be able to track all of your students as to residency. Obviously, good practice is to start in kindergarten, but there are many changes in residency, as you know, over the course of a period of time of a child being in school. There are also many other changes in a child's life in terms of family and structure. So we think it's important now to ask the new registrar to assume that additional responsibility and to allow us to be able to track students through the system. And we think it's a worthwhile practice and will allow us to better justify students' residency right up and through 12th grade. So on that note, Faye, Faye, would you like to come up to the microphone and give a 20-minute speech? Oh, no. Welcome. Okay, let's welcome Faye.
Hi.
All right.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Faye. I'm excited to work at Eastchester, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Faye, when are you going to start with us? Like right away, right? Monday. All right, so you're going to see Faye around, and we're delighted to have you on board. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Okay, so moving right along, and I want to thank Michael, our public relations, public affairs consultant, for putting together activities for Black History Month. And I'm just going to give you a very brief version that was collected from our schools, our principals and elementary assistant principals. But at Waverly, during Black History Month, February, the children will be learning about famous historical figures like Ronald McNair and Katherine Johnson. There'll be a lot more than that, but I'm giving you some highlights. And the principals are here tonight if anyone has any additional questions as to what will be happening at their respective buildings. At our grades 2 to 5, Ann Hutch and Greenvale, Stephanie Spearing's library lessons will be used grades 2 to 5, and in 5th grade, biographical slideshows of historical figures relevant to the month's activities. At the middle school, our students will experience English language arts study of the Harlem Renaissance and the Tuskegee Airmen, and historical figure showcases. They're going to be putting up 1 figure per day. And finally, at the high school, there will be morning announcements from youth for Unity Club. Our 12th graders will have excerpts from a letter from Birmingham Jail, MLK Jr., and grades 9 to 11 will be doing the study of the historic African kingdoms, Harlem Renaissance, the Tulsa Massacre, and more. So really, that's just a bird's eye view. It's not the totality of what we plan to do, but we wanted early in the month to alert the community that activities will be occurring. Okay. And if you have any questions, we have several principals and assistants here tonight who would be happy to address them as to the individual schools. Okay. Okay, I'm happy to report that our early incentive retirement program with our teachers generated the numbers that we had anticipated. And I do want to thank the ETA for the hard work they did on this, working collaboratively with our district administration. 9 teachers have decided to exercise their option and right to retire effective June 30th, as did 6 of our teacher aides assistants. So in effect, their retirement will become effective this June 30th, and the board will accept those tonight. So one of the personnel resolutions will include those. This is the first year of a 2-year plan that we've put together with ETA, and we're currently reviewing with our administrative team the staffing design and budgetary implications for next school year based on these specific retirements. So if the board has any questions at this point, I can't get into specifics as to personnel, as you know, but if there are any generic questions, I'll be happy to address them with the board. Good. Yeah, Vito?
We're going to start advertising those positions?
As soon as we complete that process, Vito, of staffing and the budgetary impact, which of the positions will be vacant and will be part of our reorganization plan for next year. Yes. So to give you a time frame, I would say no later than mid-March are we going to get that out, which is rather early. If we could beat that date, we will.
Well, that's why we did the incentive, is to get out early and get the best
That's why we had February
candidates.
1st, yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Right. So I would say that during this month, the remainder of this month, we'll wrap up that staffing budgetary review. We're just about at the end of the budgetary process with each school. We're now looking deeply into each department. And quite frankly, I'm looking at students and student enrollment, student ratios, et cetera, in order to determine viability of positions going forward. So without getting into the budget tonight, let's say between March 1st and 15th, we'll be in a position to start advertising. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving right along. We're very proud to have partnerships as a school district. In fact, February 27th, lest I forget, the board meeting will be two boards, our town board and our Board of Education, and Supervisor Colavito and his board members will be joining us here in order to have a joint board meeting, and we'll discuss those partnership agreements on that night. However, tonight, we do have a partnership with the Eastchester Little League, and they are offering to do work on the elementary school ball field, investing funds that they have raised in construction and renovation. And so there are 3 MOAs between the district and the Eastchester Little League for board adoption tonight. The district has agreed not only to have them do the work on our fields, and we've involved obviously our Director of Facilities, Peter, as well as Brad, our Athletic Director, to ensure that all the work is done within the specific protocols of the school district and our requirements. And we have agreed to offer up to a maximum of $1,250 to this work. And I believe they are contributing upwards of $30,000. Is that correct, Lee? In that neighborhood? Yeah. So it's a good deal for everybody. And again, we want to thank the Eastchester Little League, their president, and their representatives. That will be part of the consent agenda as well. So now we're up to the fun part. And we have a number of high school teachers here, Erin Glenmeyer and Emmanuel Suriel. We have some of our students. You can see Jake Rains, Christopher Vizzola, Elliot Lacrom Ruiz students. So what I'm going to do is ask our high school principal, Dr. Jeff Capuano, to come up to the microphone, introduce the program, and take us through mathematics and computer science. Dr. Capuano.
Good evening. We're glad to be able to speak to you tonight about our computer science program. As you heard, presenting tonight are 2 outstanding educators, Erin Glenmeyer, our math department chair and computer science teacher, and Emmanuel Suriel, our robotics teacher and also computer science teacher. And accompanying them tonight are 3 absolutely incredible students, Jake Rainez, Christopher Pizzella, and Elliot Lacombe Ruiz. Since we're talking about computer science, I figured I'd share a few lines of code with you that actually support what we're going to be talking about tonight. Our first line of code, set a vision for expanding the computer science program. We've been talking about that for a few years. We'll label that code course. The second line of code, flesh out the concept for this new course. We'll label that line of code curriculum. And interestingly enough, this curriculum was designed by the 2 people that are going to be speaking to you this evening before one of them was even hired. Before he was here, they were working on this and brainstorming, what if we could ever do this? And the third line of code, aggressively hire to support this vision. So develop a course plus creation of a curriculum plus hiring the right people equals what you're going to see tonight. Please welcome Ms. Glenmeyer and Mr. Suriel as they present, and our students as they'll be helping them out as called up.
Sorry. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I am very excited to be here and to share this with you, and I'm super proud of these kids and what we've done. What I want to start with is an outline of our computer science sequence. We've changed it a lot over the last 5 years with all the support that you've given us and Dr. Capuano, just kind of allowing us to create new courses, to introduce an AP course that came in 2019. And then in 2022, we brought in robotics and web design to complete a 4-year sequence. This is an elective topic. You know, computer science isn't one of the core 4, but these electives can't be taken without having a strong foundation. So we're also proposing that the introduction to computer science, the first course, go to a new format, which will be a full year, hopefully next year. For scheduling, we have a new pathway, a web design, which is still a half year. So if a kid only has a half year available in their schedule, they can still jump onto this track. So there are 4 years available now. With the introduction of these new courses. But once the foundation is set, the sequence becomes sort of at the discretion of the student and what avenue and what area of computer science they want to take on. Are they interested in the hardware? Do they want to know the code? And we have lots of languages now and lots of options for them. So that's why the pathways are a little jagged, because it's all about what you're interested in. So we're excited to be able to support that. And tonight we're gonna focus in on robotics. So this is Mr. Suriel, he's our teacher.
Hi, hello, my name is Mr. Suriel and I'm here to talk to you about the robotics course. So this course revolves around this little guy. I have a picture of it on the board, but it's in my hand as well. And this is called an Arduino. You can think of this as a little computer that allows students to attach various devices. It could be something as simple as a light, it could be something like a button, it could be a screen, a sensor that could detect the temperature or the light in the room or how far something is. And the students learn in my class how to wire these, so they apply the knowledge they learned in physics. A lot of students tell me like, oh, I remember doing that in physics last year or something along those lines. They learn how to wire it, and at the same time, they also learn how to program it. And the language that we use is C, which is nice because C is very similar to Java, which is the language that is used in the prerequisite course. Now, the way I designed the class is I focus on various components. So I would choose maybe 2 or 3 components and then decide to make a project based on those specific components. And when I designed this course, these 2 ideas were the main idea. I always keep these ideas in front. Open-ended projects. Students develop and execute their own plans. All of our code is original, no step-by-step guides. Let's be realistic. If someone Googles, hey, how do I make a robot? You can follow some steps and make a robot. But I feel that a sense of pride and ownership comes when you design something yourself and then utilize the skills you have learned to bring it to life. The students get much more pride when they come up with the idea themselves and make it themselves and come up with the plans. Something else, the second thing I focus on the course is simple designs, fully functional solutions, but not, we're using cardboard, for example, because we know these are prototypes. And the goal is, the real hope for me, and I've seen it happen before, is that a student makes something and they're so proud of it that then they go out of their way, buy the resources themselves, and then make it better. They get a 3D printer and make something that they can then keep forever. Last week, we just finished Project 2, and I wanted to show you a real example. We just finished it last week, and one of our students is actually going to talk about his Project 2. But just to show you what I mean, the requirements for Project 2 were 2 LEDs, which is like 2 lights, 2 buttons, and 1 buzzer. And with those minimum requirements, make whatever you want. I saw all types of things being made. I've seen some things like a music box, to something like a Simon Says game, to I've seen calculators made just from these simple requirements. The students work on these projects for several weeks. This specific project, they worked on it for about 5 weeks. And while they're working during these 5 weeks, they're submitting a lot of things. First, they submit a written proposal. When they submit the written proposal, I'm looking for 2 things. I'm looking to see that A, what they want to make is possible, because sometimes they get too ambitious and I need to say, you know, we don't even have enough parts to do that, or that's impossible. And B, that they're also pushing themselves. Sometimes they might want to, sometimes they look at a project and say, you know, you could do a little more than that, or, you know, we could push the throttle a little. And as they're doing this, they're also going to submit a wiring diagram, a 3D planning diagram. They submit their code, the actual prototype, and they actually submit a video at the end, which is like a video presentation of their project to kind of like keep a record of it, because we do take these apart at the end. So I would like to show you right now one of the video presentations. Oh, okay.
Hey guys, here's my project that I've been working on for the past few weeks in Mr. Suriel's class. It is the Little Suriel. This simple contraption uses a couple of buttons, a buzzer, 2 LEDs, an LCD screen, and an Arduino to provide math questions to the user. Once it's turned on, a math equation will appear. The option you currently have selected will be blinking. To change selections, press the right button. This will advance through the selections. When you are sure about an answer, press the left button to select that one. If your answer is correct, the green LED turns on and you hear a 1000 Hertz tone. If it's incorrect, the red LED turns on and you hear a 250 Hertz tone. There's no time limit on answering questions. This continues until you get to the last question, and it shows you your score. The answer doesn't look like it's one of the options. Press N, which stands for none of the above. This may seem like it was relatively simple, but it was really a pain. It turns out it was more difficult than I thought to generate questions and random answers that are close to the answers, but not quite. It was also a little bit tricky to reset the screen and have every option in its correct spacing. I ended up having to count how many characters each number was so that they're all the correct distance apart. The project is based off of The Little Professor, a creation by Texas Instrument in the 1980s. While they were breaking onto the calculator game, they created this anti-calculator. Instead of you asking it questions, it asks you questions. Interestingly enough, if a calculator and a little professor collide, they will annihilate and emit a photon. I was going to add options for multiplication, division, and subtraction, but I decided against it because the deadline was fast approaching. I hope you enjoy using the Little Suriel. Let me know what you think. Hey guys.
So that project was by Eric Murdoch, and here are his wiring diagrams and 3D planning. So you can see as they were working on it, they also have to like plan it out. They don't just jump into it. They have to plan it out. And you know, this is the actual project you just saw in the video. It's nice to show the back because when you see the front, it's, you know, I like to tell them to pretend that they're trying to make something you want to sell, so you want to hide it. But if you actually look back there, there's a lot going on over here. And yes, so this was Eric's project, and I think Jake is next, and he's going to show his project.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake Rains. I'm a senior and I'm currently partaking in the robotics course. I started out taking computer science A, where I learned a lot of fundamentals for coding, and then that really helped me bring it into this course. And here for my project, I made a stop the light. So how it works is the game will run, and there'll be a line going by, and each light will turn on. And then your objective is to hit a green, a blue, or a green light. Now, as you can see, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of green wires, red wires on the screen, and there's also an LCD, as seen in Eric's project, and a buzzer. Now for mine, how we worked it was, instead of using cardboard, my partner Emma went out of her way to buy wood and cut it herself to make it shaped like a box. Nice. So how it works on the inside is there are a bunch of wires all mashed up together, and it creates this fun little game with 3 levels, and each one progressively getting harder as you play. I got my idea from this game called Bop It, where you use 2 springs to collide and stop the light in the middle. I found that pushing it on the button would break it, so instead I added a little clicker instead, just to change that. But my idea was originally from this little device. But, yeah.
Next is Chris.
Hi everyone, how's it going? So last year as a junior, I was looking through my schedule for this year, and I was worried because there weren't really many electives I wanted to take. As someone who already took most of the computer science courses, and that was my main interest, there was nothing I was really interested in. I was looking at maybe a free, and when I heard about the robotics class, I got really excited because I knew that this could be something that's really fun. First day was an amazing impression. Mr. Surreal is so fun to work with, and he's so kind. Our first assignment was just a getting to know you for him, which was just so refreshing. Knowing that he was a new teacher and he actually wanted to get to know us was so sweet of him, because a lot of teachers like math, science, we just hit the ground running day 1, showing us formulas and everything. The next day he definitely gave us some work to do. So. Yeah, so I really love this course, and a lot of seniors do a WISE program. They go and they intern somewhere. Instead, I'm applying to do a passion project. I'm going to buy an Arduino of my own, and I'd like to make a project of, many of you might have played a Tamagotchi. It's a little game where you have a pet and you feed it to keep it alive. And I remember I had one as a kid, and I thought, maybe I could make that. And I thought it would be a really fun project. So I just really think that this is a great course. And I've included it in a lot of my college essays. I like to minor in computer science when I go to college, so my supplements know about this course. Many of the colleges know about this course, and they love to see it. So many colleges have emailed me saying that this course is great. UAlbany accepted me, and they actually sent me an email asking about the course, because it was something I was majoring in or minoring in. And it's really just a great opportunity for kids, and I loved it myself. So thank you guys.
Next is Elliot.
Hello everyone, my name is Elliot Lacombe, and it is a pleasure to be talking to all of you today about my experience in this course. Ever since I was young, I've always been passionate about building and creating projects, such as, model rockets, racing drones, or even I built a 5-foot-tall potato cannon my freshman year. I've always loved the feeling of creating something with my hands out of nothing but the ideas that have just been in my head. So when Ms. Glinmeyer first came to us and told us about the potential of there being a robotics class, I was thrilled. I immediately got in contact with the renowned Mr. Surreal, and he gave me a similar presentation to what you guys have seen today, and I knew that this class was a must. The class gave me the freedom to explore the wonderful world of modern electronics, challenge myself, but most importantly, grow my creative passion. It is like giving an artist 3 colors, red, blue, and green, and telling them, paint anything. The results are a true example of an individual's creative liberty. I feel like this class has solidified my decision to study electrical engineering at Northwestern University, and I am excited to continue making awesome projects throughout the rest of the year. Thank you all for listening.
I'm very proud of all my students in how they did in this project. You should have seen my classroom the last 2 days. It felt like an arcade. We spent the day, I gave them Monday just to play with each other's projects, and today was more about, they actually peer reviewed their projects as well. They grade each other, and when they all walked out, and no more talking, I looked around and it was just like an arcade. It was just an arcade machine everywhere. It was so nice. It was a nice feeling. We want to say thank you for all of this was possible by the supportive administration, the board, the parents, and honestly, the incredible students. Thank you.
take a nice picture of you. Thank you very much for taking us into the future of augmented reality and showing us where we all are going. Is there anything we could do for you for next year's budget that you haven't asked for through Dr. Capuano, or you'd love to see to make this program even more exciting and more inviting? You've got an entire board listening to you. Come on.
I said it in the beginning,
Come to the microphone. We're going to get you live. We're going to record it.
The intro course, changing it from a half year to a full year, I think that's really going to change the game in terms of getting the kids not only prepared for all the other courses we have to offer, but inspired. We need the time with them to let them do projects like this and let them fall in love, and really to see what they're capable of. So the half year right now, it's a half year right now. We just turned to the second semester, and I'm letting go of the kids, and I feel like I could have just had them if we did one more project. A lot of them will continue. These guys would have continued no matter what. But it's the kids who are maybe unsure and need that time to grow their passion, to feel like they owned something even when they thought maybe they couldn't, having the extra time. So we're proposing the full year for the intro, and yeah, just more robots.
More robots?
Just the fun stuff, but we put that in our budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
You put
hardware,
that
we
in
have
your
Bluetooth
budget.
boards,
Okay.
we put that in, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, while we're here, we can.
Right. And in fairness, your administration did present.
Absolutely, that's all,
Much
and
of
I'm not,
Right.
we're fully
we-
equipped, but
yeah.
that's always
All right.
good.
How many
stuff to have.
students do you think would sign up for the full year course?
A
Estimate.
lot of freshmen sign up right now. It's right now we have, what do we have, 120?
Yeah, for the 6 classes.
Yeah, there's 6 classes. The trouble with the full year is that those same 3 periods would only run 3 classes and not 6. So we're proposing that it goes to 4 periods a day instead of 3. But then the retention is what we're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, just adding to, I'm the one proposing the 1 year course. And it's because with 1 year, I can get them to fall in love. With a half year, I can't get them to do creative projects with only a half year of content, because I need to build skills. And I even just like Ms. Glenmeyer said, I just started the second semester with a new group, and I even gave them a little warning, like, the beginning's a little boring, just bear with me, I gotta show you the ABCs of this. And my point is that it takes longer than a half year to get them to know the ABCs, but if I can get them for a year, I'll get them to fall in love, and they're gonna want to take it. The percentage that will move on will be much higher if I can get the course to be a year.
Right now we have like 30%.
All right, so the second question is, if we make that commitment, where are we going to find another Erin and another Mr. Surio? No? I mean, we'll recruit, but if you have some colleagues out there who may be looking
Yeah, it's a good
to
question.
join the team, yeah.
Yeah, there's room right now. Jackie Osmanage, she used to teach intro.
Internally,
Yeah,
right.
now she teaches web design. So Jackie and I both also teach math. So
Okay.
there's room, for us to teach more CS.
All right, okay. Well, I think after tonight, we'll all take very seriously growth within the program. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Capuano and the team. Michael, did you want to take a picture of the team before they left our Kodak moment here?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Okay, take care. We'll see you, gentlemen.
Dr. Blinken, can I take a moment to gush?
I'm sorry, sir?
Can I take a moment to gush a bit?
You want, oh, yes.
To gush, to gush.
Yeah,
This is so
Trustee,
exciting to
Judah
me.
wants to gush.
This
Gush.
is so exciting. First of all, Ms. Glinmeyer, as you know, I'm very fond of your history here. I've used with Scott in meetings your example that we spoke about when, the first or second year you were here, of your classroom experience with the Google Classroom and having the kids, do the measurements to reach pi and have it show up live in the classroom. That was an example I used in the technology committee for many, many years. So I am so pleased with this specifically. Elliot, Chris was the one who mentioned it, but Elliot will be interning, you've asked and I've approved it. We won't know for sure until Ms. Myers approves, but Elliot will be interning with me with his WISE program. His brother also was an intern for me and actually worked on an ESP32 unit, which maybe you've seen and played with, and maybe that made you jealous, and that's why you took this course. But what's interesting about that is what you guys saw today. If you guys remember, I've been going back and forth to Buffalo and to Montreal to install in a newspaper machine that is actually probably as big as these tables around. A board that we designed based on that very same ESP32 chip, which is sort of, the Arduino is sort of a little bit more integrated, has the chip like the ESP on it, but it's basically the same technology to control 48, they talked about 2 and 3 IOs, to control 48 IOs per station, 24 to 30 stations per machine, motors, equipment that does all the packaging of your inserters. That's what I do for a living. And so it's so exciting to see that come to fruition for these guys to be learning a version of this, because you got to start with the games and the stuff that's fun, because when I do it on the equipment in the New York Times and Buffalo News and Montreal Le Prince of Paper, it's even more fun and revenue producing. So I just think it's so exciting to see us finally get here. We've been talking about robotics for a long time. It's unfortunate that Sammy didn't choose that path, but we can't control everything. But but it is exciting to see our kids have that opportunity, and I'm just gushing with glee over this. I can't tell you. It's just really exciting. So thank you all, and I look forward to more exciting things.
Well, what would the world of augmented reality be without literacy? I'm a poet and I don't know it. Okay. I do that with my granddaughter regularly. We rhyme together. She's 5 years old and I sort of understand her. But anyway, literacy is so critical to us as a community. And we have an award-winning team here tonight who would like to talk to us about where we're at tonight and where we hope to go next year. And I want to be sure we introduce everybody who's here, who's joined us. So obviously you all know our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Scott Wynn, who heads up the reading initiatives with our team. And then we also have, very proudly, all of our principals at the elementary level here tonight. So Joanna Napolitano is here to join us from Greenvale. Plus Caitlin, can't forget Caitlin also from Greenvale. Dr. Annette Keene is with us tonight. Ann Hutch principal, together with her AP, Kristen Kumar, and also Dr. Laub, the ever reliable Dr. Harry Laub. Ever durable. Harry is with us with Eliana DeLuna, his assistant principal. So welcome. We have the entire elementary administration here, and we're very proud. And I want to say publicly that the elementary assistant principals have taken a very active role in implementing literacy at the elementary level. So each of them are active players, monitoring and supervising the program and supporting our overall effort. Also, I believe we have some members of our literacy task force here. Is Adalia Rosamilla from grade 1 here? Hi, Adalia, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Adalia is part of a district-wide literacy task force that has been meeting with great regularity to look at all the work we're doing and to make recommendations for next year. And she's also joined by Chrissy Conrad, who is from Waverly Reading. Welcome, Chrissy, and thank you for being here as well. So on that note, Susan, I see you standing here. Are you the next speaker or Scott? Tell me, where are you going?
Both of us together.
Both of you together. So on that note, let's introduce both Scott and Susan and get the program on the road. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Valenti. And you know, I always appreciate it when you have me present after the students who make robots. That's always really nice to make sure that our presentation is just as good, that's for sure. So thank you all for having us come tonight. We really are excited about this, and this has been a long time, long work in progress for us to get to where we are today. But we really are feeling as though the presentation we're giving you tonight and the recommendations that we're making are what is best for the students of Eastchester. And you can see we've called this a proposal for Eastchester's future because as was stated in the last presentation, while it's great to get to this advanced level, you can't get there without the true foundations. And in terms of literacy, that's what we're going to be speaking about tonight, the true foundational pieces that will get our students to where they need to be in the future. And before we begin, I really do want to thank the entire crew that is here tonight. And in addition, we have a 30-member literacy committee that has been working on this project for over 2 years. And it would not have been possible without their countless hours and their countless true moments of brilliance in terms of pulling all of this work together. So I just want to thank them publicly for all of the work that they've done, truly. So looking at our ideas for literacy, let us move forward. So the Eastchester approach comes with many different facets, and we truly took this approach in terms of literacy by looking at each part of what is truly necessary in order to get us to where we need to be, breaking it down, and then building it back together, as you can see, as a puzzle tonight. We took a long look at the science of reading. This was something that we are truly grateful for Dr. Valenti for really pushing us to make sure that we included all of the elements of the science of reading into whatever proposals that we've made. We really thought through child development. You will see that this may look a little bit different in terms of what's happening at Waverly with our K-1-2 students as opposed to our 2-3, as opposed to our 4-5 and moving forward. Because developmentally, children need different things in terms of literacy to make sure they have the building blocks moving forward. Stakeholder input. We truly looked at all of the input that we had from our teachers. Like I said, our literacy committee is composed, and you'll see in a second, of many different members who bring lots to the table. Our administrative team brings many different perspectives from a future and from a past that really made our decision-making possible and what is best for our student. We looked at regional success. We looked around to our neighboring districts. We reached out to them. We visited them to say, what has worked for you and what hasn't worked for you? What is truly in our region the best things that are happening, because we want to adopt that as well. And then this idea of building a toolbox is something we've been talking about along the way. How do we provide our teachers with all the necessary tools in order to reach each individual student? We've talked about this idea of individualizing and differentiating our curriculum to make sure that we're reaching every single kid at their level and moving them forward. And do our teachers have the tools in their toolbox to make sure that that can happen on a daily basis? And I believe that this approach that we're proposing is going to complete all of these different pieces of this puzzle.
All
right, thank you, Scott. Good evening, everybody. So we took into consideration two big guiding principles, and we thought about what are the things that we want students to do, and then what are the things that we want to provide for our teachers. So in terms of our students, of course, we want our students to learn how to read and write. That is, 2/3 of the essential parts of an elementary curriculum. But we don't only want students to be able to decode or read words, we also want them to love to read and write, to see themselves as readers and writers, to have experiences even from a very young age of actively reading and writing. And this will, our hope is lead them to literate lives. K-12, and then certainly beyond. As students go up the elementary ladder, they're moving from learning to read to reading to learn, and being able to access all of the different texts that are out there for the learning that they need to do as they get older. And then, of course, we want them to be able to write for the purpose of, solidifying and expressing their understanding. So those are the things that were guiding us in terms of students. For our teachers, we want them to be confident that they are able to provide the highest quality literacy instruction to our students every day. And we want them to be engaging and participating in data meetings to guide their instructional planning, and being able to use multiple points of data to make instructional decisions for both groups of students and individual students. And that idea of our teachers as our instructional decision makers day in, day out, moment by moment in the classroom, so very important. In order to be able to do that, we need to provide high quality professional development on elements of effective literacy instruction, and we also have to make sure that they have access to the highest quality resources so they can enact a strong Tier 1 curriculum to meet the needs of all students. So a lot of different thoughts went into this plan that we're recommending. So the Literacy Committee, a little bit about that, 30-member strong group. We began officially in this capacity meeting a little more than a year and a half ago. We have K-5 representation on the committee, teachers and administrators representing every grade level, general education, special education, reading specialists, AIS providers, ENL teachers. All had a seat at the table, and all were able to give input from their own expertise and on behalf of their specific students. We did a review of multiple resources and materials from numerous publishers, looking at all the elements of the literacy program. And then what I found to be the most exciting part and really illuminating for us is we were able to visit 2 school districts and see 2 different programs, 2 slightly different approaches in action, and get feedback from the staff themselves. So that was, really kind of culminated the committee's work. All right.
Thank you. Before we go into the science of reading, we just want to say a special thank you to the Rye City School District and to the Ardsley School District for hosting us on these visits. They spent a lot of time with us and provided basically open access to their elementary buildings for us to truly see these programs. So a special kudos to them for providing that. So we just wanted to take a brief moment to dive into the science of reading, an essential part of our process and our research. And we really wanted to just share a couple of important points that we kind of garnered from our research. So what is the science of reading? And it's important to note that there's kind of this what is and what is not, but it is definitely a comprehensive body of research. It is not an ideology or philosophy. It's not a fad or a trend. It is a true compilation of contributions from every sort of different research an educational subsect that is out there, whether it be special education, psychology, neuroscience, linguistics. It is definitely not something that's going to change in a short period of time. It is not a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to reading. But really what it does is it provides us with that preponderance of evidence showing us how students read and write most effectively, how they truly develop those skills, why that some children have difficulty, why some children grasp it more easily, and how we as educators can truly most effectively teach and assess reading and writing. I think something else that's important to note that it is not a singular program that can be adopted. You can't just adopt the science of reading out of a box and say, this is what we're doing, and it's the science of reading. It is much bigger than that, and it's much more in depth than that. And it's also not just phonics and phonemic awareness. And you'll see in a little bit that it comprises so many more elements than just the phonics and phonemic awareness, which are critical elements of it, especially at the younger ages, but it is so much more than that, which provides the opportunity for children to learn in different ways. These are 6 of the most important instructional practices that come out of the science of reading. Again, phonemic awareness and letter instruction. These are truly important at the youngest ages. Being able to decode and encode, so learning to read as well as learning to spell. Connecting is a big word within this, connecting the text reading in order to build that accuracy and automaticity and fluency and comprehension. Read-alouds, using read-alouds from a variety of complex text to build knowledge and vocabulary. Having and engaging students in those robust conversations to make sure that they're developing their academic language along the way. And then providing explicit instruction in grammatical structures and academic vocabulary. And we feel that what we're proposing tonight is going to help to really promote all of these instructional practices within our classrooms.
All right, so if you do any even a cursory look into the science of reading, you will likely come upon Scarborough's reading rope. It's been around since, I believe, 2001. And what it shows, it's actually a really nice diagram. I've been sort of living with it for a while and deconstructing it. What it shows is we've got these, 2 main strands of our reading rope. Language comprehension, which deals a lot with meaning making, comprehension, vocabulary. And then we have the other strand, which is word recognition, which is phonics, phonological, phonemic awareness, and the eventual sight recognition of words. So those 2 strands, as you see in the diagram, they become entwined into this rope, which represents skilled reading. So this is really the diagram that illustrates for us what the science of reading looks like and what are all of the different pieces that we want to make sure that we have in our own literacy program. All right. One thing that we found as we were looking is that no one program that we found did every single one of those things as well as we would want it to. And believe me, we looked for the unicorn program, and it to our knowledge, was not out there. So what we realized is that we needed to select components of programs that were sort of the best in the field. And that's what we feel that we did in the recommendations that we're going to be making to you.
So let's get down to brass tacks and talk about what are our actual recommendations. So, based upon the work of the committee, these are the recommendations that we are making. So as you can see, we've broken it down by some of the big topics: phonemic awareness, phonics, handwriting and word study, comprehension, and small group instruction. This is for each grade level what we'll be recommending to implement as we move forward. So for phonemic awareness, we implemented this year Hegarty, and we will be continuing with that. Hegarty is the gold standard in terms of phonemic awareness. We truly believe it is what we should stick with, and we have recommended that we do stick with it for kindergarten, first grade, and up to second grade. Phonics, handwriting, and word study. This will be Fundations. Again, probably the gold standard in terms of these programs and this element of our literacy program. You can see that Fundations runs for K1, 2, and up into 3, where we also have the cursive handwriting program. As we move into the upper grades, we will transition out of Fundations and we will move into Fontes and Pinnell's word study, which will then continue through 5th grade to round out the word study portion of this element of our literacy program. In terms of comprehension, we've decided and recommending the Teachers College units of study and the classroom libraries that go along with it for all of our grades, kindergarten through grade 5. And in terms of small group instruction, we have kind of a dual approach here. And this is truly where that phonics, phonemic awareness piece is very important and kind of comes over into small group instruction as well. At the upper grades, we are going to recommend the F&P guided reading, Fontes and Pinnell's guided reading program. But at the lower grades, it's very important that our students have access and are taught using decodables. And that will be a number of different elements that we will purchase, including elements from Hegarty, our Geodes program, the jump rope readers, and several others as they go through. As students begin to grasp the decoding piece of literacy, we also are going to make available the F&P guided reading where appropriate. So as students get to that level where they are ready for the F&P guided reading materials, we will have them available so that students can continue to progress at the level that is most appropriate for them.
So another way to look at the chart that Scott just showed us is by looking again at Scarborough's rope, but this time taking all of the elements that were listed here and then placing them in the right spot on the rope. So I'm not going to read out every single one. I'm more than happy if there are questions to go into any of the elements in more detail, but something that I did want to highlight is how important, small group instruction is within several of those elements, as well as independent reading among students when they are able to read independently, read alouds by the teacher for developing academic vocabulary and also content knowledge. And I've also included there social studies and science instruction, because background knowledge is a very important part of what makes a good reader. There's actually a very famous study of a text that was about baseball. And the text was given to very strong readers at a grade level that didn't know anything about baseball, and less skilled readers at the same grade level that were very knowledgeable about baseball. And surprisingly or unsurprisingly, who did a better job at comprehending that particular text was actually the less skilled reader that had the background knowledge. So, part of when we're looking at literacy as a whole, we can't forget our subject areas as well. So when we're talking about classroom libraries, we're making sure that those libraries are filled with both fiction and nonfiction books. And once we've established robust classroom libraries, having teachers be able to fill in with books on topics that, one, they know students are interested in, but two, that they also know are aligned with units within social studies and science content. All right. And then, another way of looking at what we're suggesting is just kind of taking a look at the pillars of the literacy block. The literacy block is at the elementary level the largest block of the day. So what goes into that amount of time? So we have, again, Hegarty for phonemic awareness at the K1-2 level, Fundations and F&P word study for phonics and word work, our TC units of study in reading for skill and strategy work and work with comprehension, and then, as Scott mentioned, both decodables and leveled readers. Decodables for our newest readers, and then as they gain skill in decoding, moving into leveled readers, which have more complex plots and more better developed characters, so that they're strengthening other reading muscles beyond decoding. And then of course the classroom library is made up again of many genres, leveled and non-leveled books, fiction and nonfiction, etc. Right? And then again, when we're looking at literacy, one of the guidelines I had talked about earlier was teachers having data points from which they can make decisions. So just wanted to show the different areas that we have for assessment. So Heggerty was new this year. We did not require that teachers administer the Heggerty assessments. They are there, and that's something that we want to look into next year utilizing. We've been doing the NWEA MAP testing in both ELA and math. This is our second year. That's going to continue. Another data point. For students in grades 3, 4, and 5, we have New York State ELA testing data. We have the Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment system, but again, when we're dealing with students that are really at the decoding level, might not be appropriate for every student, so we're looking into adding some other assessments at Waverly, specifically the Dibbles assessment, which is more letter recognition and decoding based, than F&P BAS, which is more comprehension based. Also, teachers for many years have been using running records. They're listening to a child read, they're taking note of errors, they're taking note of their fluency, and if they're making self-corrections, so that would continue. And then foundations, this year we had teachers that piloted foundations K to 3. There are assessments with each unit of foundations, so there again is another point of data for teachers to use when forming small groups, when making decisions about possible AIS needs of their students, and many more reasons.
So moving forward, our timeline, just some basic highlights. Obviously tonight we present to you for feedback and as we move forward, eventual approval of our recommendations. We obviously have to consider budgeting and purchasing. This is a very large expense. It will be part of, we're not going to talk about tonight what those expenses are, because obviously it's one part of a much larger picture that Dr. Valenti will be presenting in terms of the presented budget for next year, but obviously will be something that we need to consider. Staff development, as soon as we have an okay and as soon as we get the budgetary approval for it, we would want to begin staff development as soon as we possibly could in order to make sure our teachers are prepared in all of these different programs, and that staff development would obviously be ongoing for basically all of eternity. We will make sure that our teachers feel comfortable and will continue on with it. With hopeful we will be implementing our reading changes in September of 2023. Looking at 2023, 2024, obviously continuing our professional development, collecting feedback, working with our teachers, working with our students, working with our parents to collect feedback on all of these changes to make sure that it is moving in the right direction and that we've made the right decisions. And then we've talked a lot about reading, but we have a whole nother component that we need to talk about. Obviously, trying to change our entire reading and writing program at once would be very overwhelming. So we had actually talked about starting with writing. And after talking with teachers, getting feedback, and looking at the processes that we had already begun, we switched over to talk about beginning with reading to close the loop on reading and move us forward in that direction, with us looking at writing for next year for implementing of writing changes the following September. Does that mean that we are not going to be writing next year? Of course not. Our teachers are very skilled at teaching writing. They won't have a new program per se and new resources, but we will be looking at that for the following year in order to make sure that we get truly a true focus on reading for next year, with writing happening the following year. So with that, We are here. We are available for questions if there are any. We have a whole slew of people who are the experts in all of this, who are more than willing to come up if there are kind of grade level specific questions or grade band specific questions that come up. They are here to help as well. So we turn it to you to see if there are any things that you'd like to hear more about. Yeah.
Hey Scott, thank you for the presentation. I actually have two questions. One, on the slide that you had that chart with the K, that one.
Yes.
So where it has 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, where it's slated out with the phonics awareness, does that not mean that the children in those grades don't get the phonetic awareness? Because the concern is that grade, assuming for next year, I mean, right now, the children that were in kindergarten and 1st grade during COVID were probably maybe lacking that phonetic awareness. So what will be built in for next year to address that issue? And then my next question, going to, I guess, Susan's slide about the pillars and using the ELA test to help assess the children. My concern specifically is for the 3rd graders who are coming home every night going, where's the A, where's the D, where's the C? And how is that going to be an accurate representation of the child's comprehension if they're going to spend more time figuring out, well, how do I answer this question, as opposed to, will I have enough information to take this test so I can accurately answer that question?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so starting with phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is a primary literacy skill, so it's generally not taught explicitly in the upper grades. With that said, and maybe we should have actually added it into the chart, is that we have access to Hegarty as an intervention as needed. So if a teacher, a 3rd grade teacher or a 4th grade teacher goes to their principal, comes to me and says, oh my goodness, the student, I'm really concerned, we absolutely have the resources. And again, that goes back to the idea of the power of small group instruction within the classroom. There are times where it's appropriate for a child to be taken out to be seen by an AIS provider, and times where an intervention can be provided by the classroom teacher in the classroom. So yeah, I apologize for how it looks like just goes into nothingness in the 3rd grade. As far as the points of data, when I think about data points, my feeling is it's always better to have as many different points of data as possible. So if I was looking at a child who was, scoring above grade level on the NWEA, and they were at the grade level that they were expected to be on either the BAS or a different assessment, and the teacher's observations are this kid is a great reader and they're doing beautifully, and I look at their ELA score from 3rd grade and it was not what we would expect, that's when you say, okay, what happened? Did the kid, not get a good night's sleep? Was the kid nervous? Was it computer-based testing for the very first time? Was the kid worried about typing? So again, if we only had the ELA, that would be a problem, but that's why, as many more of those pillars that we can add gives you the fuller picture of what's going on with a child. We would never just go with one data point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick question. If you could go back to that chart again. In 3rd grade, the Foundations with Cursive program, does that mean that like in 9 years our kids will be graduating and some of them will be actually writing instead of printing?
Well, I mean, cursive has been part of 3rd grade for a while. It's, whether or not students, continue to practice it. I just wanted to make sure that it was in there because something about Foundations, that it includes a handwriting program. You don't have to purchase an additional handwriting. So I just noted that for 3rd grade, the handwriting portion of Foundations is cursive instruction.
Okay, but just because we have it there and they don't do it, maybe we could enforce it or reinforce it down the line in the later grades so that they do use it. Just a thought, something I'd like to say, and I've been asking for a long time.
Want to start? Well, they do get packets. I mean, my 3rd and 5th grader have packets for cursive. And again, whether or not, I mean, it's continued. Yeah, one likes to use it, the other one doesn't.
As I always say, look at the graduating class and poll the graduating class and see how many of them actually write in cursive. And I'd like to see a higher percentage of that personally.
Yeah, let's drill down into that question. The question really is about cursive writing.
Yes.
And is it enforced, to use your word?
Encouraged.
Encouraged, okay. Well, then let me use encouraged. At the third grade level, would one of our elementary principals at grade 3 want to come up and take a stab at that, or assistant principals? No preference, just an invitation. Dr. King.
Thank you. So as Susan mentioned, cursive has been embedded in the third grade program for many years. We've used handwriting without tears. So now it would be included along with the Foundations program. I think your question was more about encouraging it in the later years, correct?
Correct. Well, encouraging throughout the spectrum from 3rd through 12th. Just encouraging people to write cursively. I don't know if we do that. It's kind of an open-ended question. Do we? Will we? Should we?
Just address 3, 4, 5.
So in grades 3, 4, 5, we do operate right now in more of a hybrid model. So there are opportunities where writing projects or final samples are written in cursive. There are other times where it is, on the computer. And I feel like now that we are moving towards the ELA exam, being online, we are embedding more opportunities for the students to respond to reading on the computer. So it's an interesting debate.
And Vito, I think the follow-up to the will we and should we is more conversation to be had.
I appreciate that.
Of course.
Is that a quick question? I know that anything new like this requires training and professional development. I think you had the slide on there. But have you given any thought to how that's balanced with the current professional development? I know we've received a lot of feedback that teachers get pulled out, right? There's a lot of professional development ongoing. And have you thought of how that fits into the overall professional development plan? And is this adding more time that they get pulled out of class, or how does that balance out?
So we're actually looking to reverse that. Okay, and one of the things that we are proposing within our budgets would be the addition of literacy coaches for each of the 3 elementary schools. That would have an in-house person in each building who would be able to push right into the classroom, provide professional development, provide modeling, provide support to teachers in the classroom while they're teaching, rather than being pulled out of the classroom to work with, let's say, a consultant or go to a workshop. We would have that in-house ability to really push right into the classroom and support our teachers during that time when they would be providing instruction.
Any other questions from the board regarding the presentation? Okay. Then I want to thank the entire team. Let's give them a big round of applause. Yeah. I think we introduced everybody, but there's someone sitting there, Minnie Iannucci. Minnie, stand up. Minnie's not part of the literacy team, but she is our STEM K-12, right? Math, science, etc. We didn't want to ignore you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I think we got everybody. All right, so let's wrap up the presentation. The board will be approving tonight a district-wide guidance plan. We've spent the entire fall semester making changes and adjustments to it. That involves all of our district counselors, guidance counselors, as well as administrative representatives. And so that plan will be adopted tonight. And this is in conformance with State Education Department regulations that on an annual basis, the board must adopt a K-12 guidance plan. And what's unique about the guidance plan, other than the recommended curriculum adjustments of the state, is the appointment of a district-wide advisory council. That is to say, we now have a group of stakeholders, not only internal folk who work within the district, but we also have parent reps and outside reps, and they did have their first meeting in December, and we look forward to another meeting in May. The state does require minimally 2 meetings per year, and so we're starting off by fulfilling that requirement this year, and then we'll migrate in future years to see how we may want to expand the number of meetings. So part of the consent agenda tonight will be approval of that plan and members of that committee. So on that note, I think we've covered enough of the universe of academics and everything else. And so I thank you, and we move on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valenti. All right, we are up to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to move the consent agenda? Christine?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, which includes the following: 8, approval of minutes; 9, personal agenda; 10, Committee on Preschool Special Education recommendations; 11, pupil personnel recommendations; 12, educational and curriculum and instruction; 13, business office recommendations; and 14, other business.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
Jackie? All right. Any discussion, any comments? Okay.
I'll make a quick comment.
Go ahead.
One of the items is the approval of a donation by the Eastchester Schools Foundation as a result of the very successful Wizards event last week, and we just want to give them a shout out.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, all in favor? Okay. Okay, future meeting dates: February 28th, regular meeting; March 14th, work session; and March 28th, regular meeting. All right, we are up to comments from the public at this time. I'd like to just go over some rules. We have board policy 1230. I'm going to just read you some excerpts from that. The public comment period is designed to give community members an opportunity to address items on the agenda, as well as to comment on other topics related to district services. It is not intended as a question and answer period. Board members shall not be required to answer questions or respond to comments. All remarks must be addressed to the board as a body, and not to any specific board member or to any district staff member. We will allow public participation for a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes total. The board will not permit in public session discussion involving individual district personnel. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel should present their comments or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours, or you can always send the Board of Education an email. The board does read all of the emails that come in. We are prohibited by law to speak about personnel issues, and you cannot speak about personnel tonight. So if there are residents here who would like to sign, oh, we have a sign-in sheet here. Okay. Sure. All right, so the first person on the list here is Mrs. Osborne. And again, there's 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. I don't know if this is working. Is it? Yeah. My name is Sharon Osborne, and I am the parent of a 9th grader and a 6th grader. And we were really excited to be able to come back to Eastchester this year and be a part of the public school community. That has not been the case for quite a while. My older son was in 2nd grade and in kindergarten here, And then we have been in private schools, and last year in Florida, out of state, in a school there. And when we returned, my husband and I were trying to figure out what are we going to do for the kids for school. And we looked at Eastchester and we thought this is the perfect place because the kids have really been missing that camaraderie and the community. And we have such a wonderful small 3-mile town with 1,000,001 kids in it. And they really needed that social part. And I think that's why a lot of the kids come here. Our concern was that because the school had shut down essentially for 2 out of the 5 days of the week for the year following the pandemic, how were the proficiencies going to be? What level of knowledge were they going to be at based on the grades? For our children, they did end up skipping a year because in Florida last year, our students who were in 4th grade and 7th grade completed the subject matter that was taught here in 5th and 8th. And they are actually still having some subject matter in math and ELA, and in my older son's case, in global studies, repeated from last year, even though they're in 6th and 9th grade. So at the last January 10th meeting, not the last meeting, at the January 10th meeting, which is the last meeting I attended because at the other meeting, my younger son got norovirus, which was really fun. We talked about proficiencies, and I had an idea that they were low, but I guess across the district, they are at 67% when you combine all grade levels. But one of the things that I definitely noticed was for 3rd and 4th grade, the proficiencies in math and ELA looked like they were below 50%. And I was really encouraged by tonight's meeting and also by what I heard from the last meeting that we will be including Spanish, or trying to include Spanish from a young age. This was actually the first year that my 6th grader has not been able to take Spanish as a class. And I think it's really important. I think being bilingual is really important, be it Spanish, be it French, be it Italian, be it Japanese, be it whatever. New York City obviously has bilingual programs starting in preschool. So it's awesome that the board and the administration is planning that for the coming year. I was also encouraged tonight hearing the literacy program. And I really do hope that we can not just have the plan and make the plan, but actually follow through to make sure that the plan is continued in terms of it being actually implemented in the classroom. I know that there is a Next Gen New York State Department of Education program, which is supposed to be group project-based hands-on, and I know that we're trying to get there. So anyway, I just wanted to give accolades to the board and to the administration that we do seem to be going in the right direction, and we do want those proficiencies to come up because it's such a great town, and it's a great school, and it's a great group of students. Thank you.
Okay, Thomas Fix.
Good evening, everybody. I didn't expect to be called so soon. Good evening, members of the board, members of the administration, as well as members of the community, both in the room and on video. I've become aware, and I find it very concerning, that comments made by our superintendent have been misconstrued in an attempt to discredit him. I find this very alarming and disingenuous. I believe this emphasis on his statements is an attempt to distract from all the good things he has done, as well as undermine his standing within the community. The policies the superintendent has put into place, I believe, will help our students move beyond the educational opportunities lost during the pandemic and work towards a more productive future for our students. This situation has brought to mind the teachings of a wise man I have always been a fan of, Thomas Sowell. After reading his biography this summer, I became even more aware and had greater admiration for this man and all his teachings. He uses common sense to break down the rhetoric brought to us by ideologues who look to divide us under the guise of being united. I would like to reference two quotes for Thomas Sowell, which I think apply directly to the situation we have seen arise currently at hand. The first would be, the word racism is like ketchup. It can be put on practically anything, and demanding evidence of such makes you a racist. The second one is another one which I think is very applicable to the times we are now living in. Racism is not dead, but is on life support, kept alive by politicians, race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. Attempts to discredit the superintendent and the administration by misrepresenting the content or meaning behind his statements is disingenuous at the least. These accusations seem to be more in line with the ranting of an ideologue than those of a concerned parent. Our superintendent and board deserve the confidence and support of this community as they continue their work towards improving the educational system of this community. We must resist those who are trying to bring in outside influence and agenda-driven policies to our school curriculum and spoil this great community. Thank you.
Next is Tina Russo.
Just wanted to give, hi, how you doing? Just wanted to give everybody a little word of encouragement. I think you're doing a really great, amazing job for these kids, restoring education in a post-COVID world at least. I'm very grateful that grades are posted online, something that I had asked for a very long time, in a timely fashion. Let's see what else. As it pertains to this situation recently with the PTA, I just want to ask that people don't misconstrue anyone's words or messages. I think the intent at the time was education with the introduction of foreign languages to the elementary level. So, you know, I think the only mishap there was sort of falling for divisive rhetoric and following through with an apology, because I do not think the intent was at any point to be, cause strife there. And on a positive note, I do think these meetings have gotten pretty interesting since there's at times two-way engaging discussion, which has been a bit of a lost art, amazingly. And I took a look at the books on display in the back there. With Black History Month, I'm going to ask you guys if you've ever heard the name William Harvey Carney. You probably don't know who he is. He was a sergeant during the Civil War, the first African American to receive the Medal of Honor, who, despite being shot in the face, shoulders, arms, and legs, refused to let the American flag hit the floor. It would be nice to see books in the library that are, I don't know, not as divisive, literature that may not destroy kids' morale, and, maybe just unify and teach them perseverance. It'd be nice. Maybe you could work on that.
Okay, next on the list is Kyla Murphy.
Perhaps a bit of counterpoint. Hi, I'm Kyla Murphy. For those who I don't know, I am a mother of a 3rd and 5th grader at Amherst. Last week, I became aware of some racist comments recently made by Dr. Valenti. I can see—
I'm sorry, you can't speak about personnel.
The door was open with that first comment. The door was absolutely— the first speaker spoke about how he wasn't racist. Certainly, I'm able to speak.
Okay, you can't say names.
Okay, I can see perhaps this individual misspoke and did not mean to be racist or promote stereotypes. But in situations like this, impact is far more important than intent. Eastchester should be a place that welcomes all members of the community, and these statements are in direct contrast to these values. This reflects poorly on our entire community. So where do we go from here? While personally some might be calling for resignation, I also acknowledge that a revolving door of superintendents is disruptive for the district and not best for our children, and that sometimes people need a second chance. Thus, I ask that the board request the following. First, an apology to the community. I know that there has already been an apology sent out to the Waverly community, but A, that was the Waverly community, and B, and more importantly, the tone of that letter was basically, I'm sorry if you're offended. As my children well know, that is not actually an apology. An apology is, I'm sorry, I did wrong, I resolve to do better. And this would be my second request. I ask that the board require commitment-based action steps with concrete and specific actions to learn and grow from this experience. This could be things like anti-bias training or reinstatement of the DE&I community initiative. We need the district to expect better. Besides the moral imperative, most corporations across the country have made inclusion part of their core values. And if we want our children to succeed in the real world, we in Eastchester must do the same. Thank you.
Next, we have Cardi Smith.
Hi, good evening. Kind of tall. So I'm here this evening because of, I know I'm tall, but it won't go up anymore. I'm here this evening because of the comments that were made at the Waverly PTA meeting, which I also took to be racist comments. And all last year I sat here at these Board of Education meetings and I listened to students, high school students, come here, and over and over and over again, they very eloquently and articulately explained their feelings and how they felt as if they were in an environment and a culture that was not inclusive, an environment and in a culture that was not open and warm and inviting to all. And there was silence. There was no action. Similarly, this event happens and this board is silent and there was no action. There was no statement about how this board and this educational body stands against racism in any form, stands against bias in any form, and yet there is precedent when former board members made statements around the special education in this community. There was swift action taken, swift statements taken. That sends a message to members of this community who are of color, who are like me, about what is important. And I will tell you, based on my own experience and my family's experience, my 5th grader who attended the Eastchester public school system from K through 4th grade no longer attends. I pulled her out. I pulled her out along with several other families who similarly pulled their kids out, as you were all talking about the transition and the migration of students. There is a reason why. It's not simply because parents want to move on. I didn't move to Eastchester to pay tens of thousands of dollars in property taxes and then pay double that in private school tuition, but I'm doing it. One, because I want my children to have an environment in which they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel included, and they do not feel dismissed. My youngest child, who started kindergarten this year, did not start kindergarten in the Eastchester School District because I similarly started her in a private school. I started her in an environment where I feel that she will be accepted and she will be included. And unfortunately, that's not this district. And so I'm here tonight as a member of the community who does pay property taxes, who does vote. And you need to hear this. This is important. People who are going to move here are watching the news. They are listening, and this matters to all of us. And I would really hope that you are also listening, paying attention, and understand the importance of this. Thank you.
Next is Cheryl Smith.
Is there another sheet after this? Is there another sheet after this?
I stand to ask the Board of Education to launch an investigation into the recent comments that previous speakers have referenced regarding the teaching of world languages and in particular Spanish language speakers, as well as into actions taken after the comments to suppress open dialogue about the impact of those comments on some members of our school community. To say if you've been to a gas station or tried to speak with a landscaper around here, you know Spanish is a popular language, is to make a blanket characterization of Spanish speakers that rests on stereotypes. And such stereotypes totalize and further marginalize people and communities like Latinos in the US who are already marginalized. The marginalization of Latinos may not have been the intent, but I don't speak to intent. Rather, I speak to the impact and effect of the remarks, as a previous speaker spoke about, and leaders are accountable for that. Coming from the most important educational leader in the community, words about Spanish speakers can vindicate and even advance anti-Latino bias and ultimately jeopardize some students' access to an education environment free of discrimination, taunting, and harassment, which is legally afforded them by the Dignity for All Students Act. Thus, such comments are not only offensive, but they contribute to a culture of unexamined implicit bias and casual racism in our schools. Likewise, our district code of conduct charges our leaders with the responsibility to, quote, maintain a climate of mutual respect and dignity for all students, regardless of actual or perceived race, color, height, weight, national origin, ethnic group, religion, religious practice, disability, sexual orientation, gender, or sex. Members of the community are telling you that the climate of mutual respect does not exist. Will you listen? In an environment where community concerns about hateful rhetoric and implicit bias are swept under the rug, how can we expect students to be held accountable for adding the N-word back into non-explicit lyrics at a school event and singing them loudly for all to hear? How can students be educated about the profound threat communicated by the Nazi salute in the hallways? How can homophobic bullying in our hallways and cafeteria be addressed? These are incidents that our own high school students have reported and attested to last year and which are continuing this year. Our Black, Jewish, and LGBTQ students deserve meaningful action in response to these events widely known by staff and students and their families to regularly occur. And our Latino students likely deserve meaningful action. And I ask for meaningful action from the board and the administration to start to bring the community together and to have meaningful conversation around these issues. Thank you.
Louis Della Parra.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight. I am the father of an 8th grader and a 10th grader. I'd like to start by thanking leadership for the vision and intention to teach Spanish language since East Chester. I think we shouldn't lose sight of the big picture here. That's really what matters. At the end of the day, teaching a second language is important for all our students, for all our kids. I think it's just going to make us better. I also want to take this moment to shed some light about the Hispanic community. I think it's important for all of us to learn about one another. I think this is the time that I think I'm going to use to do so. So the data that I have here comes from the U.S. Census, Civic Science, Nielsen, and the Bureau of Labor Activities, just to name a few of the research engines that I have. So let's just take a look at Hispanics in America. We are 62 million of us. That means 19% of the US population. Here in the state of New York, it's 25%. So that means we're the largest minority in this country. We contribute 22.8 trillion to the American economy. So to put this into perspective, if Hispanics were a country, we would be the 5th largest economy in the world tied with the UK, and larger than India, Italy, Brazil, and Canada. In other words, what's interesting here is that the US is the richest Spanish-speaking country in the world, right? So at the end of the day, the future for Hispanics is bright, right? The GDP, we're very young, in general, not me, but in general, Hispanics are very young. So that means that their GDP is growing at a 2.6% faster than non-Hispanics, which really translates to Hispanics' household income in the US is over $100,000. So, which means 1 in 5 workers in the labor force is Hispanic, and 1 in 4 students in general in America is Hispanics. So simplifying these numbers, here's a big one. 67% of Hispanics is what we consider white-collar jobs, and 34% is, 34% of Hispanics work in production, transportation, constructions, and maintenance occupations. By the way, all very honorable positions, right? And, frankly, very similar to the total US population. Another one that's interesting, US over-indexed in entrepreneurship. 72% of new entrepreneurs in the US are Hispanic, which means these guys are innovators. You just saw one right here in Eastchester, just basically doing robotics, which I think is great. I think it's phenomenal. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's going to Northwestern. And then what that means, there are future employers, right? So again, when you look at the population of Hispanics in America, 73% are under 35 years of age. They all speak English and Spanish at home. We're very proud of being bilingual, very proud of being Hispanic, and very proud of being American. We contribute to the economy of this world. So at the end of the day, I don't think we should lose sight of what Hispanics are in America. I think at the end of the day, the intentions of leadership, it's to educate Spanish, right? So we shouldn't lose sight of that. And at the same time, I think we should all take a moment to learn from one another. I think the more we learn from one another, the richer we are as a community, and the better we're gonna do. So just let's take a moment sometimes to learn from one another, collaborate with one another, and we're gonna be a better community as a whole. Thank you.
Next is Janet Harrison.
Hi, all. I'm a mother to 2 black daughters. I'm married to a black man. I've lived in this community for over 10 years. I've sat in this room, as other people have talked about, and listened to kids of color, listened to kids who are gay, and say they don't feel they belong. They have been attacked in the hallways. They have stood up and not been addressed. Nothing has been done. This board has been very clear, and everyone sitting on it, that this curriculum, including DEI, is not welcome. It's not. There are great assemblies, I've heard, but my kids in high school haven't seen them. I don't know why. On bias and hate. They haven't seen them. And I'm going to read you something that I got from a mom today, another mom who is the mom to black children. Hi, Jan, this is what happened with Olivia. She was late going to school, and she had to give a security guard, I don't know the name, her badge. And along came security guard number 2 with a black girl. Security guard number 2 took her badge and asked the other security guard from the security guard and asked the black girl, whose badge it wasn't, "Is this your badge?" And the black girl says, "No, it's not me." And he said, "Are you sure? You all look alike." This was reported to the high school principal, and nothing has been done. Now, I can tell you, if that was my daughter, I would own this place. This is a level of commitment which is nil. And you can say that those of us who are asking to have our children treated with respect, with dignity, That somehow, that we're being divisive, that we're saying because we're asking for that we're ruining the world. Well, I beg to differ. And I wasn't going to come tonight until I got this, because I have no hope here. Zero hope. None. And also for our LGBTQ kids who are harassed in the hallway and called the F word. It happens all the time. The N word happens all the time. What has this administration done? Zero. Zero. I don't even know what to say anymore. And that's why, because I know the people here are going to snicker and do all their stuff that they normally do. But I'm telling you, what you're doing to our children is not right. When I've asked about what you're doing for DEI, I get nothing.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next up is Catherine Weiss.
Good evening. Our children not only deserve, but require qualified and skilled teachers and administrators who understand, value, and affirm their colorful cultures. When insensitive comments are made by a leader of an educational institution, it is harmful to a community. Comments that convey deficit thinking, whether subconscious or otherwise, contribute to the detrimental practices that foster and preserve racial inequities in our schools. Comments such as this lead to conscious and unconscious feelings of racial inferiority for students of color and feelings of racial superiority among white students. We're working toward a society that is devoid of racial injustice, and comments like this set us back in that work. I ask the board, as a concerned parent and member of this community, to strongly consider cultural sensitivity training, starting with administration. Thank you.
Yeah. And the last speaker for this evening is Christina Palazzo.
I'm Christina Palazzo, the PTA president of Ann Hutch. I'm sorry, I'm going to take this mic off because I'm just exhausted. I came here tonight to speak on a few things. Thank you to all the parents who are speaking out against what Dr. Valenti has said, because whether
Sorry, can't say names.
Oh, right, sorry. The person who made the comments. Because children are listening to these things. High school kids read Facebook and whatever is going on, and it does isolate people when they hear these comments and they feel certain things are said towards them. It makes them feel lesser than. Whether the intention was there or not, it does. I also came to talk about some PTA issues that we're having at the school that I haven't got any response to. One of them is the BOCES discrepancies, which I've mentioned several times in emails and sent emails since November. And when I say BOCES discrepancies, I mean roughly $80,000 that's missing from programming at Ann Hutch, that Ann Hutch has overpaid to the district, and credits that should have been made to Ann Hutch for programming. Disappeared, no record of where it went. I've been waiting for an answer since November. So hopefully if I come here and just kind of put it out there, parents will email and try to find out where it is as well.
Go ahead. Vito, go ahead.
The other thing
I'm sorry.
Sure.
You can't, this is a public comment period.
Okay.
You can't come up and make criminal accusations around anybody.
It's an observation
No,
that I haven't
you
received.
can't go
It's an
there.
observation that I have not received a response to.
If you
since
haven't received the
November.
response,
Since November, not really.
we're not going to let you go up there and make criminal
Well, I'm done
accusations.
talking about that. I'm on to the next subject. I'm on to the next subject.
Well, then I'd appreciate if you retract what you said.
No. After school clubs, restructuring needs to happen now. We were notified by the state that the way that the after-school clubs have been structured are not permitted for the PTA to pay certain individuals directly. So some of our best clubs have been by the teachers. Mr. O'Neill does the technology. Ms. D'Orazio does art. Ms. Carlson does physical ed. And Mr. Zante does jazz band. And our kids love these clubs. They also love the teachers teaching the clubs. We love the monitors managing the clubs. And we want to kind of keep the same structure the way that it is. In order to keep the structure the way that it is, the district needs to work with the PTAs to restructure the clubs. So maybe the PTA can give a grant to the district in order to pay the employees to keep the structure the way that it is. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was the monitor coverage when the teachers are not in the room. I would hope that there's a plan in the district to hire more TAs so that the children are receiving instruction as opposed to just being watched when the teachers are not in the room. And another thing is cultural arts.
Thank
One
you.
of the
I'm
things
sorry,
I've
out of
asked the
time.
district to do is make a line item to put cultural arts into the budget, because right now it's zero, and the PTA pays tens of thousands of dollars a year. In some years, the bill was like $120,000, and the line item is zero in the district. And we'd really like to see the district pay some money towards something in cultural arts. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we have an artist coming to Ann Hutch, and the artists will be there. And the PTA is paying for it, and I heard that the publicity from the district is going to attend to take pictures, which I find ironic. But thank you for your time.
All right. Are there any board comments? Any comments from the board?
I want to make just one factual observation on the last speaker. There is $100,000 in this current budget, and Ms. Lee Lu would be happy to show you where it is with respect to arts and education. That's a fact. Thank you, Mrs. President.
Okay.
I have a new business item
Yes, go ahead.
that I'd like to bring up. Several years ago, a suggestion was made to, let me give a little history. The school district controls Stewart Place from the gate up into the traffic light, the street that runs in front of the school. That is not a town street, that's a district street. And several years ago, after Dom Cesare passed away, we had discussed the possibility of renaming that street Dom Cesare Way. At our next board meeting, we're going to work on a draft resolution to do just that, with the intent to put up 2 signs on the street adjacent to the high school baseball field on telephone poles, naming that section of the street Dom Cesare Way, and with the objective of doing that and having a little ceremony at the Cesare baseball tournament for the baseball team that opens up on, I believe, April 29th on a Saturday. So I just want to bring that up. It's a very positive thing to do. It's not going to cost us anything. The town has agreed to provide the signs and the installation to that. So maybe I think the appropriate time to do the resolution would be at our joint district and town meeting, which is our next meeting, I believe.
February 27th.
February 27th? Okay, February 27th. So, thank you. That's great.
Thank you, Vito.
February 28th.
Sure.
I just want to say, I've been serving this board for 10 years. And especially in recent years, I've seen many issues divide this community. I'll echo one of the speakers that my hope is that as individuals and as a community, we can try and recognize preconceived notions that we all may have and increase awareness, tolerance, and understanding between and among ourselves and our neighbors. We all desire to ensure a safe and supportive environment for our children, our staff, our community, and I hope we can find a way to move forward and talk to each other and work through and celebrate our differences.
Are we recessing to exec?
Sure.
think you need a motion to adjourn.
Yep. Okay, can I please have a motion to adjourn? Christine? And a second? Christy? All right, all in favor? All right, good night, everyone.